The building was silent but not empty. A single voice cut through the still air, sharp and impatient. "You missed the deadline, old man. Rules are rules." Across the lobby, a veteran stood motionless in front of the counter. His hands didn't shake from fear, only from restraint. The folder he held looked too small to matter, and too heavy to ignore. Outside, sirens echoed off the glass. Reporters were gathering near the entrance, drawn by whispers of something unexpected. Inside, time had already broken its own rule. By the time the governor's convoy reached the curb, one decision made behind that counter would ignite a reckoning. And someone inside that office would learn that rules don't always decide who's right. The lobby of the North Carolina Veterans Affairs Office hummed with printers and ringing phones. The wall clock ticked sharp above the counter 8:34. Ethan Cole straightened his tie, clicked a final key, and locked the submission system for the day. Today was supposed to be smooth. Governor arriving at 9 for the veteran housing bill signing. No delays, no surprises. His supervisor's voice still echoed in his head. Keep the numbers tight, no exceptions. The glass door opened with a soft chime. An old man stepped inside, rein on his shoulders, holding a folder against his chest. He paused beneath the sign that read, "All applications close at 8:30 a.m." He walked forward anyway. His shoes left faint wet marks on the marble. Each step sounded too deliberate for a man his age. Ethan didn't look up. "Sir, the system's closed. You'll have to come back next month." His tone was clipped professional by training, cold by habit. The old man stopped at the counter. His name tag, half faded, read, H. Mercer. He placed the folder down gently, as if it were breakable. "I was only a few minutes late," he said. The bus broke down outside Fayette Street. Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd been burned before last time. One late file cost him a promotion. Rules kept him safe. Compassion didn't. "Regulations are regulations, sir. We can't make exceptions." He glanced up, eyes hard. "Policy doesn't blink. People do." Hal Mercer smiled faintly. "I don't need an exception," he said. "Just someone to take this file." He nudged the folder forward an inch. At the next desk, Carla Dean, mid-40s, steady hands paused her typing. Something in the man's voice pulled her back to old memories of hospital wards and uniforms. She turned slightly, watching the exchange. Ethan exhaled, tired already. "The answer's still no." Hal nodded once. "It's about my wife," he said softly. "Her burial request." The air shifted. Even the printers seemed to slow. Carla's fingers froze above her keyboard. Ethan blinked, masking the flicker of discomfort behind his professional mask. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said. "But deadlines exist for a reason." Hal's gaze didn't waver. "Yes," he replied. "They do." A quiet settled, brittle, fragile. Ethan tapped the counter once. "Try again next month, sir. And if you dare to grow to that sale." Then, softer, almost rehearsed. "Have a good day." Hal picked up the folder. His hands trembled slightly, but his eyes stayed steady, blue-gray and unwavering. "There won't be a next month," he murmured. Ethan frowned. "What was that?" "Nothing," Hal said, turning toward the waiting chairs. His steps were slow, heavy, like gravity clung tighter to him than anyone else. Carla watched him sit. The folder lay across his knees, its corners worn to soft curves. A yellow discharge paper peeked from inside a stamp dated 1972. Ethan leaned back, muttering, "People think sympathy fixes policy." Carla's eyes narrowed. "Policy didn't crawl through mud for that stamp," she said under her breath. He didn't hear her or pretended not to. Hal opened the folder again. Inside were documents lined with typewriter ink and an old photo. A woman smiling beside a flag, sunlight caught in her hair. He touched the picture with a careful thumb, then closed the folder as though sealing a wound. The clock clicked to 8:45. The office rhythm returned printers, keyboards, the shuffle of papers. Only Carla kept glancing toward the waiting chairs. Hal stared through the window at clouds breaking over Raleigh. He wasn't angry. No heat in his eyes, just weathered patience. The janitor's mop glided across the floor, its slow rhythm matching the steady tick of the clock. The smell of cleaner mixed with the faint scent of rain. Carla's phone buzzed a message from upstairs. "Prepare for the governor's arrival." She set it down and looked again at Hal. He hadn't moved. Shoulders straight, hands folded over the folder like a flag in ceremony. Something in her gut twisted. She whispered, "Do you want me to check with the supervisor?" Ethan didn't look up. "No. The rules are clear." Hal stood again. He adjusted his jacket. brushed the damp from his sleeves. Then he faced the wall where a flag hung, stars catching the light. For a long moment, he just stood there. Then, with slow precision, he straightened his posture. The quiet discipline of a man who never forgot what standing meant. The clock turned 9. Above the counter, the screen flashed. All submissions closed. Outside, a low convoy rumble threaded through the glass. Carla's heart skipped. She didn't know why, but the sound made her uneasy. Something about it felt like a storm approaching not from the sky, but from history itself. Hal sat back down, folding his hands once more. In his reflection on the window, the flag shimmered above his shoulder, and behind him, unseen, the day began to shift. The morning air still carried the chill of last night's rain. Hal Mercer left his small apartment at 6 sharp boots echoing on cracked pavement. He checked the wristwatch he'd worn since 1971, the glass scratched, but still ticking. The bus stop was quiet, just the hum of traffic far off on Fayette Street. He adjusted the folder under his arm, thumb brushing the faded label. Burial authorization request. Today, he told himself, would be the last time he'd have to carry it. The city bus hissed to a stop, doors folding open. Hal climbed aboard, nodded to the driver, and took a seat by the window. The smell of diesel mixed with the faint scent of wet asphalt. He counted the stops in his head, 15 to downtown. Enough time to arrive by 8:15, maybe 8:20. Plenty of time, unless something went wrong. Halfway down Fayette, something did. The bus lurched, engine coughing twice before dying completely. A wave of groans rolled through the passengers. The driver turned, apologetic. Sorry folks, looks like we're stuck till another comes. Hal peered out the window. Up ahead, 2 cars had collided at the corner, a small wreck. But smoke curled from one hood. He didn't hesitate. Old reflexes fired faster than reason. He pushed to his feet, ignoring the driver's shout. Outside, the rain had turned the pavement slick. A woman struggled with a jammed car door, panic flashing in her eyes. Hal moved toward her, shoulder low, boots sliding. The metal resisted him once, then again. He braced himself, drove his weight into it. The door gave with a groan. The woman stumbled out, coughing but alive. Thank you, she gasped. Hal just nodded, checking her arm for fractures. You're all right. Stay by the curb. His sleeve was streaked with blood, not his own. The smell of smoke mixed with rainwater. It was the same smell he remembered from a different place, a different year. For a moment, the street faded, and the sound changed. It wasn't engines anymore, it was rotor blades. Laos, 1971. Operation Firecloud. A night sky painted orange, the jungle burning below. A young lieutenant shouted through the rain. Major Mercer, the ridge is gone. Hal's voice came steady through the chaos. We hold this line, son. No one gets left behind. Mortar rounds tore the air. Mud and blood splashed the same. He remembered the heat, the ringing in his ears, the moment he realized help wasn't coming, only survival. He dragged 2 men through the trench before the chopper returned. Then the sound faded again. The rotors turned back into the low growl of city engines. Hal blinked, gripping the seat pole as the next bus pulled up. He climbed aboard, heart hammering. The driver looked at him oddly. You okay, sir? Hal nodded. Always. He sat down, eyes unfocused on the window. Rainwater streaked across the glass like tracer fire. He whispered to himself. Always late for the right reasons. By the time the bus reached downtown, it was 8:31. The clock above the courthouse square confirmed what he already knew: he'd missed the deadline again. Still, he walked. The Veterans Affairs building loomed ahead, all glass and concrete. He could see his reflection in the doors, stooped shoulders, silver hair, and the ghost of a man who'd once commanded airstrikes. He squared himself before stepping inside. The confrontation played again in his head, the young clerk's words, sharp as shrapnel. You people always think the rules bend for you. He'd heard worse. Much worse. Inside the office, air conditioning hummed cold and sterile. He took a seat again in the waiting area, ignoring the glances. He'd been here 7 times before, 7 times denied. 3 days late for his wife's burial permit. 2 days late for the revised form. A lifetime late for peace. He opened the folder, looked at the letter on top. The ink had faded, but her handwriting was still graceful. If you come home, promise you won't leave me behind. He had broken that promise once already. She'd died while he was away for a medical review he never finished. By the time he returned, her ashes waited alone. Now this was all he could do, keep one more promise, even if it meant being late again. He smiled bitterly. You'd laugh at me for this, Martha. The whisper vanished into the sound of ringing phones. At the next desk, Carla Dean watched him. Something about the way he sat straight-backed, unmoving, reminded her of men she used to patch up overseas. That same posture, that same silence. She couldn't help herself. She opened the personnel database, fingers typing Harold Mercer. The system loaded, blinking once before showing the record. Rank, Major. Division, United States Air Force, 8th Air Group. Award, Silver Star. 1971. Carla's heart skipped. She scrolled further, stopping at a scanned photo, a younger man with cold eyes and steady hands. Same jawline, same calm. She looked across the room. He was staring out the window, unaware of her discovery. She picked up the phone, pulse quickening. Governor's office, Raleigh, answered a receptionist. Carla cleared her throat. Hi, this is Carla Dean, Veterans Affairs. Could you confirm if Governor Allen Reed once served under a Major Harold Mercer? A pause. Papers shuffled. Then a man's voice replaced the woman's. Did you say Mercer? Yes, sir. Another silence, heavier this time. Please hold the line. Carla's hand tightened on the receiver. The hold music played 3 soft notes, then stopped. Across the room, Hal turned his head. He'd heard his own name. His eyes narrowed, not in surprise, but resignation. He stood, slow but steady, and approached her desk. Ma'am, he said quietly. Cancel that call. Carla blinked. But sir, if this office only works for men with medals, he said, then it doesn't work at all. I had fact for not of the time. His voice wasn't angry, it was tired, truth. The kind that carried more weight than volume. Carla hesitated, then set the receiver down. But the call had already gone through. Somewhere downtown, a staffer was already making another call. Outside, the low hum of engines gathered near the curb. The sound grew into the familiar rhythm of security detail vehicles. A convoy slowing to a stop. Hal turned back toward the window. He could see the reflection of black SUVs aligning along the front steps. He exhaled slowly. He'd taught Reed everything he knew about composure under fire. 50 years later, the lesson was about to be tested again. He whispered under his breath, "Let's see if you remember, son." Inside, the office lights flickered as camera flashes sparked beyond the doors. Staff began to whisper. Carla stood frozen at her desk, heart in her throat, and when the glass doors swung open to the sound of polished shoes on marble, Hal Mercer didn't turn. He already knew who was coming. The marble lobby straightened itself when the motorcade arrived. Security officers fanned out, earpieces flashing. A low hum filled the air, half ceremony, half storm. The glass doors opened. Governor Allen Reed stepped inside, flanked by aides and photographers. He looked every inch the official polished, confident, untouchable. Hal Mercer sat near the window, hands folded over the same folder. He didn't rise. His eyes followed the flag's reflection in the glass, not the cameras behind him. Carla Dean stood behind her counter, pulse hammering. She'd made the call. Now the consequence had arrived, wearing a gray suit and the weight of history. Reporters whispered, adjusting their cameras. They weren't here for a story like this, at least. Not yet. They were expecting policy, not revelation. Ethan Cole brushed invisible dust from his desk, straightening his clipboard for the 3rd time. He had no idea what was coming, but he could feel it, something shifting in the air. Governor Reed smiled at the staff as he passed. He shook hands, nodded for photos, offered polished lines for microphones. But halfway through the lobby, he froze. A figure sat by the window still, upright, precise. An old soldier, waiting for something more than permission. The governor's eyes narrowed. His steps slowed. Every sound around him dulled until all he could hear was the ticking clock. He turned to his aide. Hold the press for a moment. Then he walked away from the lights, toward the shadow by the glass. Each footstep echoed heavier than the last. Carla saw it first, that look of disbelief spreading across the governor's face. Recognition. It hit him like a shot through the years. Ethan followed, confused. Sir, the press is ready. Reed didn't answer. He stopped a few feet away from the veteran. Hal looked up when the shadow crossed his lap. Their eyes met, one pair young once, the other old now, but still carrying the same discipline. Time folded between them. Reed's voice came out low, unsteady. Major Mercer? The words broke the silence like glass. Every head turned. Carla's hand covered her mouth. Ethan's clipboard slipped, hitting the floor with a sharp crack. Hal's lips curved faintly. You remember. Reed nodded. breath caught halfway between disbelief and awe. "I thought you were gone," he whispered. "Not yet," Hal said. Then he rose, slow but steady. The quiet rhythm of an order obeyed. He stood tall, spine straight despite the years pressing down. Reed's throat tightened. He lifted his hand in salute, crisp, formal, flawless. The sound of his palm meeting his brow echoed through the hall. Hal returned it, trembling only slightly. The lobby froze, no clicks, no whispers, no breath. 2 men, 1 salute. 50 years between them. When Reed lowered his arm, his voice carried new weight. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "this man saved my life in 1971. The words hit like thunder. The cameras finally came alive, flashes popping, lenses turning, but no one dared speak. Even the security detail stood still. Reed gestured to the seat beside him. "Please, sir." Hal shook his head. "I didn't come to sit." Reed smiled faintly. "You never did." He reached out, motioning to the folder. "May I?" Hal hesitated, then handed it over. Reed opened it carefully, reading the faded text, his expression darkening. "This was rejected?" he asked. Ethan stammered. "Sir." He missed the... Reed's gaze snapped up. "You turned him away?" Ethan froze. "I followed protocol." Reed's tone cut through the air like a blade. "Protocol doesn't excuse disrespect." Ethan swallowed hard, color draining from his face. Carla spoke softly. "Governor." He didn't know who. Reed turned to her. "He shouldn't need to know." His voice was firm, not cruel. "Respect isn't earned by rank, it's owed by humanity." He signed the top of the form without another word. The pen scraped against the paper, steady and final. The stamp landed with a heavy thud. Approval granted. He handed the folder back. "It's done." Hal didn't take it. He looked instead at the seal, the ink still wet. "I didn't come for signatures," he said quietly. Reed frowned. "Then why come at all?" Hal's eyes lifted. "To make sure the next man doesn't need a title to be treated like a person." The silence afterward was louder than applause. Reed studied him, the steadiness, the grace under fire that hadn't aged a day. He turned to his aides. "How many applications were denied this quarter?" One of them hesitated. "Sir, I'd have to check." "Check," Reed said. "Every one." He faced the cameras again, tone shifting to command. "You all came for a photo op. Fine. Take this one." He pointed to Hal. "This man didn't ask for favors. He just asked to be heard." A flash went off, lighting Hal's profile against the flag. Reed continued, voice strong now. "When I was 19, standing in a jungle halfway across the world, he told me something I never forgot." He looked directly at Hal. "You said, rules matter, but people matter more." Hal's jaw tightened. "Didn't think you were listening." "I was," Reed said. "And I still am." He turned back to the crowd. "That's why today, right now, we start fixing this system. For every soldier who was told to wait another month." Applause began hesitant at first, then swelling. Hal raised a hand. "Don't do that," he said quietly. The clapping stopped. "This isn't about me." "Avely," Reed's voice softened. "Maybe not. But it started with you." He held the folder out again. Hal finally took it, fingers brushing the paper like it was something sacred. "You always carried the weight for everyone else," Reed said. "Let someone else carry it now." Hal smiled, tired, grateful. "Then make sure they don't drop it." A murmur of laughter rippled through the room, gentle and real. Even Ethan managed a small, humbled smile. The tension cracked, but the respect stayed. Reed looked down at his watch. 9:37. The ceremony he'd come for no longer mattered. He faced his staff. "Cancel the signing event. We'll draft new policy by noon." "Sir?" his aide asked. Reed's tone was calm but absolute. "We're rewriting the rulebook, starting with this page." He turned to Hal again. "You've done enough battles for one lifetime. Go home." Hal nodded. "Home's a long walk." Reed smiled. "Then take your time. You've earned it." Hal stepped back, folder in hand. The light from the window fell across his face, sharp and golden. He paused, looking at the flag one last time. It fluttered in the reflection behind him, red, white, and forgiving. He exhaled, steady. "Guess we held the line after all," Reed answered softly. "We always did, sir." The cameras kept rolling as Hal turned toward the doors. Each step was slow, deliberate, not retreat, but release. Outside, the day waited bright, open, new. Outside, the light had changed. The storm was gone. leaving the city washed clean. Sunlight stretched across the courthouse steps, glinting off the wet marble. Hal Mercer paused just beyond the doors. The noise behind him, applause, camera shutters, movement faded into a single low hum. He stood still, the folder in his hands heavy with silence. He looked down at it. The ink from the governor's signature was still fresh, edges curling slightly from the damp air. Inside, between certificates and stamped forms, was the same photograph: Martha, smiling in front of their porch flag. 1972. He traced her face with his thumb. "I did it, Martha," he whispered. "You'd tell me I took the long way around." A small, tired smile crossed his face. Behind the glass doors, Governor Reed watched quietly. Carla Dean stood a few steps away, voice low. "Should we say something?" Reed shook his head. "No. Let him finish in peace." Hal started down the steps. Each movement was deliberate. Careful, a man walking through memory more than distance. The flag above him fluttered in the rising wind, its shadow sweeping briefly across his shoulder. Halfway down, he stopped. The rumble of the departing convoy echoed down the street. He waited until the last sound faded, then kept going. Carla stepped outside, standing in the sunlight. She watched him from the top of the stairs, arms folded against the breeze. The old soldier didn't look back. He didn't need to. Beside her, Ethan Cole lingered by the door. He'd removed his badge and held it in his palm like an artifact from another life. "I didn't know," he murmured. Carla looked at him. "You do now." Her tone wasn't sharp, just true. Ethan nodded once, the truth heavier than any reprimand. Inside, the lobby buzzed with quiet urgency. Staff moved differently, now no longer just by procedure, but by purpose. Reed's aides gathered papers, redrafting policy titles, rewriting rules. One form lay on the governor's desk. Hal's folder, open, signed, and sealed. Reed rested a hand on it before turning away. "Get me the list," he said to an aide. "Every case we closed this year, we're reopening them." The aide hesitated. "Sir, that's hundreds." "Then we'd better start counting." Reed's voice was calm, but his eyes were set like steel. Outside, Hal reached the bottom of the steps. He stopped by the flagpole, sunlight spilling across the polished base. The breeze lifted the ends of his jacket, the same way it once lifted his parachute line over a jungle canopy. He looked up at the flag. Its colors moved slow and certain, like a heartbeat that refused to quit. He raised his hand, gave one last salute, steady, final, proud. No cameras caught that moment. No one applauded. It belonged only to him. When his hand lowered, he took a long breath, exhaling the years between 1971 and now. Then, he turned toward the street, the folder tucked beneath his arm. At the corner, a city bus pulled up. The driver leaned out. "Need a lift, sir?" Hal smiled. "Just a short one." He climbed aboard, nodding to the driver, settling by the window. As the bus pulled away, he looked back once. The flag on the courthouse steps still waved, catching the morning light. Carla watched until the bus disappeared down Fayette Street. She turned to Ethan. "Come on, we've got work to do." He followed without protest. Inside the office, a new notice was already being printed. Effective immediately, all veteran applications reviewed upon submission. No exceptions. Hal's reflection flickered in the bus window, city streets sliding past, light shifting across his face. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded letter. "If you come home, promise you won't leave me behind." He smiled. "Took me a while, Martha, but I kept it." The bus turned the corner, sunlight filling the glass. Behind him, the flag still flew, red, white, blue, alive. And for the first time in 50 years, the mission was finally complete.